Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video from Byerly Studios. This is a video specifically about me painting some Arctic foxes on a custom-made tumbler for my wife. She had requested a swirl tumbler. She picked out the blue, the pearl, and the silver glitter, and then I made it happen. So I went ahead and made a swirl off screen, and here it is. I'm blocking in the Arctic foxes. Of course, I did this part of it without the approval from the boss, my wife. And after taking the kind of silhouette of the Arctic foxes to her, she decided she wanted it smaller. So, of course, being a dutiful husband as I am, I sanded it down, wiped it down with some soap and water, and I made the silhouette smaller. By using vinyl silhouette, it just allows me to quickly and easily just frame in those foxes without having to do the detail work of outlining them myself. It may be called cheating, but I call it using your head. Work smart, not hard. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove the eyes, the nose, and then that kind of line where the Arctic foxes are separated, and then I'm going to begin framing them in with some a titanium white. Adding those layers to build up kind of where I want the outlines, the fur, and then the faces to be. On the right hand side is me playing with Kaniki and Rizzo from the North Carolina Zoo. If you haven't had the opportunity to check out the North Carolina Zoo, I highly recommend you do so. It's 2,600 wooded acres below Asheboro, with 500 developed acres, and it's the world's largest natural habitat zoo. And one of the 2 state-supported zoos. So if you haven't had the opportunity to go check out all their amazing animals, definitely get a workout walking up and down those hills, get out of the house a little bit. I recommend you do so if you're in North Carolina. Check it out. So I'm just using as smart of brush strokes as possible. Any brush stroke that I apply here is going to be in the direction of where the fur should be. It's not really that important, but it just also gives me, puts in my mind where I want that fur to be thicker. So that way it kind of has the right frame around the face, and then as it comes around to the back and towards the bottom of the tail, which will be tucked up under the fox that's kind of curled up and laying. So as you can see here, I'm applying the kind of like outlines around the ears, around the face. The top fox, which is in the background here, you can really see where framing that in with the titanium white kind of really brings a little bit of life to it, and kind of allows you to see really what the fox is supposed to look like. By applying layers of paint, it brings those details and edges of the face forward, so you can change things as you add more layers. These foxes are completely just plain black paint and titanium white. That's the only 2 colors used. There's nothing else there. So this literally can be done by anybody. Just simply take your time, apply the layers in the right direction, and thicken it as you allow it to dry. That's all there is to it. So the same thing with the titanium white. I'm going to use just some plain black paint to block in the eyes, the insets of the ears, around the nose. And then I'm going to start using a titanium white and black mixture to gray out where I want the shadow to be behind some of the final layers of fur. So everything's kind of blocked in. You can really see the shapes of the foxes and their faces and their ears. And now I'm just going to go ahead and begin adding that shade to the foxes. So they're still really roughed in. And then as I apply those fur layers over all of the shadow I'm about to create, it really kind of brings it to life. I want that shadow to be visible through the fur, and that's what adds dimension and shade to it from behind. So here's that gray mix that I mixed from the titanium white and the black. I'm just framing in where I want the shadow to be around the face, around the tail. And this just depends on where the reference photo is. Each photo may be different than what you're painting. The face and the foot where I'm gonna paint in a moment, around the rear Arctic fox's chest and chin, around the ears, all of that has some gray tone underneath the white fur, and I just want that to be there. This is also a way for me to also build up those layers and cover up the glitter from behind. So I'm doing my best not to waste any of the paint strokes that I have. I want the strokes, even though they are a background color and will be poking through the fur that I'm gonna apply over this, I want to make sure that those are in the direction that the fur should be. The small things like that are kind of minute, but the eye will pick up on those if they're really blatantly in the wrong direction. So after I got all the shadow work done, I took this to my wife to show her, and she said, "What is that below his face?" And I said, "That's his foot. That's his paw poking out from where he's laying down." And she said, "Oh, okay." So it doesn't really look great. So I'm applying the actual toenails here. It doesn't look all that great until I apply some of that shadow, the white fur around the tail. And actually, the rear fox's feet are supposed to be poking out around the bottom of the fox right there. She decided to change things up. So later on down the road, I do come back and I extend the tail out past the paw, so some of that gets covered up a little bit. But that paw is poking out just slightly, and that's what that is. So I'm just going to apply that shadow around the ears and then over and around the face. And I'm just applying that in different thicknesses to get the lighter shadow and then the darker shadow in particular areas, continuing that process. So usually in early April and June, Arctic foxes will lose their winter fur, and that's where they get grayed out quite a bit. But then they start to get their winter fur, the white thick coat back into the fall and winter, and then usually they have that beautiful white pelt by late November. So this is kind of what they look like a lot of the summers. If you ever get the opportunity to see an Arctic fox in person, they're absolutely awesome. But sometimes you can see at the zoo their fur is literally just all over their enclosure, just because they're shedding so much so quickly. And then by wintertime they have that beautiful white coat. It's absolutely awesome. So as I'm applying the white fur here, I'm just trying to be as light as possible so I can apply those layers where I don't darken it too much. I don't want to cover up that gray so much so that it completely disappears, otherwise it defeats the purpose. So I'm just going to apply very little at a time. I'll kind of leave something and then I'll go do a different area, and then I'll come back if I feel like it's not dark enough or not white enough, and then just build up those layers using the paintbrush to move the bristles in the direction of the fur, so that even if I do miss something or if I'm applying a little bit too thickly of paint, then it still looks decent because it's going in the right direction. Alright, so at this point I got tired of looking at the solid black eyes, and I decided to go ahead and add a little bit of detail to those just to bring them to life. I'm just adding a little bit of titanium white in the right motion, right places, so that I can bring those eyes to life. Just a little small semicircle is all it takes. And then I go back with a little bit more black and just detail them out. And that is all there is to them. Just white and black paint. It really completely changes the way the fox looks. Alright, so with the background fox done, I'm going to go ahead and do the same process to the one that's laying down here. Just applying those white layers to build up the fur in the right places. So hang tight while we work through this process. And then at that point, I'm going to start working on some greenery that kind of frames in the two foxes. So while we're watching me add fur to the second fox here, I just want to take a moment to thank all those who are watching my videos. I really do appreciate all those who are coming to my channel here, checking my content out, seeing what I'm working on at the time. This not only is fun for me, but I hope it's fun for you. I designed these videos just so that they're kind of just easy to watch, laid back. I absolutely love laying in bed late at night and just watching painting videos from other artists. And then almost falling asleep while I'm watching them. It's just kind of relaxing. It's a way just to see just other people's processes. It's very fun for me, and I want to put out content very similar to that. So I really do appreciate everybody coming around. If you're not subscribed, please do so. It really means the world to me, and I really look forward to actually really creating more and more content for you guys. I know that things in my YouTube channel are going to probably evolve. Things are going to get bigger and better all along the way as I get new equipment, get new microphones and things like that. But I appreciate everybody who's coming around to watch my videos and content. Thanks so much. project. That's all it is for these Arctic foxes here. That pretty much wraps them up, except I do come back in a moment and extend that bottom tail out so that it comes to more of a point, a fluffy point. And I do that off camera. The next step here is to apply some greenery around the bottom and then the top of it to frame in the portrait of the two foxes. I got a new color that I wanted to try out, and that's a pale olive. All of the paints except for the titanium white is Winsor & Newton. So apart from the titanium white, the other colors that I'm using are a little bit of cadmium yellow, burnt umber, raw sienna. I also use a little bit of hooker's green, as well as the majority of this is pale olive. And pale olive is that color that I wanted to try out in a project, and it's very, very pale, hence the name. But as I apply other colors to this, it really does give a really beautiful color to the greenery. So after I apply some brown highlights and some yellow ochre to those leaves and the greenery, going over it with a pale olive really kind of brings that to life, and I really like how it looks. Maybe not the best for a base layer, just because of how pale it is on that blue background, as far as the glitter background, but it is a gorgeous color regardless. So I definitely look forward to using this again in the future for other projects, and it was great to be able to use that. So I'm applying some branches here, just getting the outline to see where I want everything to go. I don't want these to be any one type of branch. I want it to be a variation, kind of like a bouquet of leaves, ferns, and some flower buds, things like that. So it's not really like anything specific. It's almost as if somebody were to design this and put it in a vase or have it draping over something. It's just to frame it in, and I don't want it to be just all evergreens or just all leaves or just all flowers. I just want there to be some fun variation to it. Everything will have the same kind of shade to it as I apply those layers, so it doesn't take away from the foxes. The foxes are still going to be the focus of the eye, and the greenery just adds some variation and color to that. So it's not any one type of plant, it's kind of just a variety, kind of intertwined together. So I'm going to layer in burnt sienna and raw umber until I get the desired effect on the main branch, and then I'll use those same colors to kind of highlight over the pale olive, which I tried to highlight the base in, until I get the desired effect. Once I get the branches and the twigs that go to the leaves built out, at that point I'll start to add different foliage to it. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and block in the leaves on one of the branches here. So I'm just using that same pale olive just to get the base layer built up over the glitter so it doesn't shine through. So I'm just using variation in the leaves, kind of making them go in different directions. Some are smaller, some are bigger. And then once I work my way down this branch here, I will go to the next branch over, but I'm going to use a different type of leaf shape. I just want variations. I want lots of different types of greenery here, kind of built up on the branches, just to create variation. It's supposed to be fun. Alright, so moving on to some of these bottom branches, I'm going to create just kind of like an evergreen effect. Just kind of coming out and away from the bottom of the branches there. There's a little bit of that hooker green. I didn't use a whole lot of that green. I really stuck to the pale olive for the most part. But I did use a little bit of that green just to bring a little bit of liveliness to that color. So there's a little bit of hooker green in here somewhere, but not a whole lot. Alright, so I'm going to add a little bit of highlights and details to these leaves individually using yellow ochre. I like using yellow ochre. It's really vibrant as far as the color contrast against the pale olive. It just brightens those up so much. And it's not a color I get to use very often, so when I do get to use it, it's just really fun. The other color I'm using here is burnt umber. and that's going to darken and highlight the yellow ochre in. All of the leaves are going to have pretty much the same color combination here, so that way they kind of blend well together. Nothing's really going to pop out like strongly. My wife did not want any vibrant flowers or anything like that, so we're just keeping it kind of basic, just kind of fun. And it's not supposed to take away from the foxes. Yeah, the foxes are supposed to be the center of the eye, and everything around this is just kind of just here. But we're going to add a little bit of texture as we go around, just to kind of bring those to life a little bit. After I get done with the highlights here, I'm going to go over now with a little bit of a water and pale olive glaze, just to kind of give it a green film so that you see that those colors underneath that pale green. So they're not too bright, but they're also just have a little bit of that shading that you would see as a transparent leaf. You'll see more yellow on the other branch. I do come back and add a little bit more, just because one side of those leaves do have a yellow tone and the other do not. Alright, so this is a close-up view of me layering in some of those evergreen effects that are coming down off the main branch there. I'm using a pale olive, a little bit of raw umber, and then yellow ochre to build up these layers. And I'm also going to come back with a little bit of highlight of hooker green, just to bring a little bit more of that lively green back to it. So not a whole lot, but just barely enough to notice. So I'll just layer these in to create the levels that I want, because off these evergreen branches you'd have tons of needles and color variations in those. So if you don't like the layers that you get, just keep applying them until you like them. On a side note, I do like how close up this painting is here. As small as the detail work is, I will have to start doing some more close-up on my painting like this. It's just really fun to see it this close. Alright, so with the bottom branch for the most part done except for some shading and highlights, I'm going to begin on the top. This top branch, instead of using that pale olive from my base, I'm going to go in immediately and start with burnt umber and raw sienna to build up the branch texture. I'm going to get the silhouettes of the branches kind of in place, see how I kind of want them to fall behind this time of the fox. And then once I get that kind of shaded out how I want the branches to flow, I'll begin adding the vegetation. And then eventually I'll kind of add a hook where the branch kind of comes up above his ear there. So enjoy the show, and then we'll catch back in a little while. So here I am using that yellow ochre again, the same highlights that I did for the bottom branch leaves. You can just see how vibrant those colors are against that pale olive. An absolutely wonderful color. I love using it. So with most of the vegetation being done, I'm going to go ahead and add that little wood hook there where the branch looks like it had been broken off from a tree or something like that. It just adds some variation to the top part there and kind of makes the branch feel complete instead of just a modge podge of vegetation there. It just adds variation to the branch there. So shading a little bit there just to show the contrast of where the light could come from the top. Just keep it kind of simple with black, raw sienna, burnt umber, and a little bit of titanium white mixed in there for bringing those tones up a bit. So there I am going to apply that raw sienna and titanium white mixture just to give some highlights to the tops of the branches so that the sun, it makes it feel like that sun is coming down from the top, and then the bottom part will be kind of darkened out a little bit. So after consulting with the boss, we both agreed that it needed something just above his ears there, just so that it didn't feel so disjointed there. So one little tiny branch coming up and above, and then the same concept, just going to add a few leaves there, add the shading and the colors of ochre there to make it blend in. And then that almost wraps up this part of the build. Just adding that fun vegetation around the outsides, just kind of framing in where the Arctic foxes are so that pure white coat kind of draws the eye inward. Alright, so that pretty much wraps up the detail work on the branch there. So 3 different portions to this video. We have the Arctic fox, the bottom branch, and then the upper branch. With all of that being completed, I think my wife absolutely loves it. I could have done a water slide on this, but I think just hand detail painting this adds an extra layer of, just care to it. And it's just fun, and it was really fun for me to make, and I hope she enjoys taking it to work. Alright, so with that completed, the next step is epoxy. Just to seal all those details so that my wife can take this to work. Everything turned out absolutely amazing, and then the epoxy just brings it to life even more. It brings out those vibrant greens and yellow ochre. Here I am epoxying the entire thing. It really is a gorgeous cup. After this, I do a light sanding and then apply one more layer, but I'm not going to get that on camera. Here's the glamour shot of this tumbler. It's absolutely gorgeous, and I think my wife loves it. Please like and subscribe. I appreciate you all watching this video. I hope you had fun just like I did. Thank you.